Milton Hershey was born in 1857 on a small farm in rural Pennsylvania. His father, Henry Hershey, was a dreamer. Henry always had a plan to get rich, and none of his plans ever worked. He tried selling equipment during an oil boom. He tried running a trout pond. He tried a fruit farm and a nursery. Every single one failed, and every time one failed, the family packed up and moved again. Because of this, Milton's education fell apart before it ever really began. He went to 6 different schools in his childhood, sometimes staying only a few months before his family moved again. He never made it past the 4th grade. His mother, Fanny, was the opposite of his father, strict, frugal, and increasingly frustrated with a husband who kept promising fortune and delivering nothing. The marriage slowly fell apart under the weight of it. At 13, Milton's father arranged an apprenticeship for him at a print shop. Milton hated it. He had no interest in printing at all, and he made sure the job didn't work out so he could leave. A year later, his mother found him something different, an apprenticeship at a candy shop in Lancaster, run by a confectioner named Joseph Royer. This time, something clicked. Milton loved it. At 19 years old, with his mother and aunt backing him financially, Milton opened his own candy shop in Philadelphia. For 6 years he worked at it relentlessly. He made candy at night and sold it during the day. At one point his father showed up and tried to help by selling cough drops and elaborate display cabinets alongside the candy. Neither sold. The pressure of keeping the business alive eventually made Milton physically ill, so sick he couldn't leave his bed for a stretch of time, and the shop was only kept running by his aunt and his bookkeeper while he recovered. Milton kept borrowing from his uncles to stay afloat. In 1881 the letter finally came. His uncles, the same men who owned a tannery and invested in land and a cotton mill, told him plainly, no more money. The Philadelphia shop closed. Milton's first business had failed completely. He didn't go home in defeat. He went west to Denver to work for a candy manufacturer alongside his father. It was there, almost by accident, that he learned the one piece of information that would eventually make him famous. Fresh milk made better caramel than anything else on the market. At the time, it seemed like a small technical detail. It would turn out to be the entire foundation of his future success. But success didn't come right away. Full of new energy, Milton went to Chicago and started another candy business in a basement on State Street, in the middle of the city's shopping district. That business failed too. He tried once more, this time in New York City, opening a shop between 42nd and 43rd Street. Competition was brutal. His capital was too thin, and this business collapsed as well. Milton went home to Pennsylvania for a 3rd time, ashamed, having burned through his family's money and his own effort 3 times in a row with nothing to show for it. In 1886, at 29 years old, Milton tried one more time. He opened the Lancaster Caramel Company using the fresh milk technique he'd learned years earlier in Denver. This time it worked. It worked so well that by 1900, a rival company offered Milton $1 million just to buy the Lancaster Caramel Company outright. In today's money, that's over $30 million. Milton took the deal. He could have stopped there. Instead, 7 years earlier, at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, he'd watched a demonstration of a German machine that made chocolate, and he had never quite stopped thinking about it. At the time, chocolate in America was treated as an expensive luxury, something only the wealthy could regularly afford. Milton believed that could change. So he walked away from the caramel empire he'd finally built and bet everything on chocolate instead. He founded the Hershey Chocolate Company and spent years perfecting a way to mass-produce milk chocolate cheaply enough that ordinary people could buy it without a second thought. It worked. Hershey's chocolate bar became one of the most recognized products in the world. But here is the part of the story most people never hear. Milton built his chocolate factory out in the middle of open Pennsylvania farmland. There was no town there, no houses, no roads built for it, nowhere for his workers to live. So instead of asking his employees to figure it out themselves, Milton built an entire town from nothing. He built real homes with indoor plumbing and electricity at a time when that wasn't a given for factory workers anywhere. He built a public school system. He built parks. He built a trolley line specifically so workers from nearby areas could get to the factory without needing a car. There were no local taxes for the people who lived there. He even held a public contest to name the town. People sent in suggestions like Chocolate City and St. Milton. The winning entry was Hershey Cocoa, until the United States Post Office rejected it, saying it sounded too much like an advertisement, so the town simply became Hershey, Pennsylvania. Milton and his wife Catherine wanted children of their own. They never had any. So in 1909, the two of them gave away the majority of their company's stock to found a school for orphaned boys, kids who had nobody left. When Catherine died a few years later, Milton didn't slow down his giving. He went further. He handed over his entire personal fortune to the school's trust, keeping almost nothing back for himself. Then came the Great Depression. Companies everywhere were shutting down, laying off workers, cutting everything they could. Milton did the opposite. He launched what became known as the Great Building Campaign, hiring over 600 workers to construct a hotel, a theatre, and a sports arena in his town, at the exact moment the rest of the country was tearing itself apart economically. He wasn't just protecting a business, he was making sure the town that carried his name didn't fall apart, along with everything else. Milton Hershey failed 4 times before his own family stopped believing in him. Nobody would lend him another dollar. What he built after that wasn't just a chocolate company. It was a town, a school, and a legacy that still carries his name, long after every one of those early failures was forgotten by everyone except him.